Welcome to Objections with Stan Willis. I am Michael Morris. This is Stanley Willis. Stanley.
Yes, sir.
How are you?
I'm wonderful.
You got to bring it, man. Did you hear what I was doing? I was pumping you up, and now the person that's probably driving off a cliff, regretting their choices in life, that was listening to this show, is now going, "Oh, Stan doesn't sound like he's excited."
Don't do it.
No. First of all, do it. But you got to bring it to the dance, young man. I have to ask you a question because we try to be middle of the road, right?
I'm kind of middle of the road. I don't think you're middle of the road.
What the hell are you talking about?
I don't think you're middle of any road.
I am trying to see it from both sides at all times, and it's hard.
What exactly is it?
Well, as someone that's steeped in the law, as myself, I like to see both sides of things and make a clear decision. I need you as your mentor. That's who I am. But I need your feedback. How do you feel about the pending war that's coming up, and should we buy bonds?
So which pending war are we talking about?
Oh, sorry. We're already in 7 wars that people aren't aware of. It's the pending war with Russia, because apparently we're patching things up.
We are kind of actually in a war with Russia.
Well, sort of. They've only arrested 12 Americans over there that are in the actual war.
And I just saw then the Washington Post, or the Washington, one of them, just had an article about a huge CIA presence over there or something. Wasn't that just recently?
Well, that all came out.
I was shocked personally.
I cannot believe the CIA would be doing anything nefarious.
I can't believe that we would be saying that we're not on the ground in Ukraine and would actually be on the ground. That just strikes me as completely.
Does that worry you more than 46 biolabs that we actually? So once it gets in the paper and once we are printing it, it's true, but we deny it. So when Putin said that in March that he was going to expose, we had 46.
Well, it depends on the paper, right? If it's in the Washington Post, it's not necessarily true. But if it's in the other one, the Washington,
the Examiner,
yeah, that one. If it's in that one, then it's real, right? So
all I know is the National Enquirer got it right before
the National Enquirer. Well, according to Men in Black, that's the best reporting on the.
I'm just saying when they were reporting on the Wuhan labs,
and if Tommy Lee Jones, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me.
The drummer from Motley Crue.
Okay, that too.
Is that the guy?
No, the actor.
He also acted in a film.
Was he acting?
With Pam Anderson.
Was that acting?
I would be. She can't. The question I have about this is that, so we're finding out the U.S. is more involved over there, and we're not there to help Ukraine. It's we don't want you to knock our shit down that we've been building here for 20, 30 years. How do you feel about that as an American citizen, knowing that your tax money was over there building bioweapons labs?
Well, there's very little that surprises me much anymore. Very, very little. I'm again go back to, I think we talked about this a few episodes ago, but the whole war with Ukraine, I don't know that it could have been avoided. I mean, because nobody can say whether it could have been avoided. I think we could have taken a few steps to at least try to avoid it.
You mean back in 2014 or back in 2012 when we got their leader booted out?
Even as early as January and February, it seemed like to me that we were more or less baiting Russia into.
You don't say. By setting people on fire that are Russian citizens in the Donbass, the Ukrainians doing that? I'm sorry.
It just seemed
the
to
Nazis.
Me. It just seemed to me that we were kind of baiting Russia into doing this because we didn't really enter into any genuine discussions about it. So the whole thing's kind of it's kind of quizzical. It's kind of hard to understand.
You think that the problem is that the United States really is just a big corporation with an army, and we don't care about people because you're not supposed to when it's a military exercise, and so our job has been to be the world's military. But there's an overreach because the point of a military is to dominate an area and maintain it so that someone else can't get it back. That's how I feel that things are going right now.
Well, I think that it's naive to think that we could just simply pull all of the military back to the United States and not worry about anything that happens in any other country, and never ever be involved in some other kind of some fight or some disagreement that's happening overseas. Because the fact is that we need things that come from other countries, and so we need to secure those things. So there is a national security interest in defending the ability for us to get things like oil
and we're going to get that oil
right
at the tip of a gun.
The overreach becomes. I think there's when you have large amounts of anything like oil or wheat or whatever, you end up with large amounts of money. And when you have large amounts of money and you have various personal interests involved, then you end up with a lot of corruption where people are really more interested in lining their own pockets than they are in advancing
Peace
or national security, and I really just think it's corruption that's causing the.
It's interesting that you say that.
Issues.
You just made me think about this. There's no money in peace. There's only money in war. Because even if you have negotiations, business transactions, you spend it. That's a phone call. Send you an email. Versus, I'm going to send over 300 tanks over there and 60 troops every single month because someone's paying for it, whether it's the American taxpayer, whether it's another country.
Well, I think that there is money in peace, and there's money to be made in peace, because as a civilization prospers in peacetime, things change hands, GDP grows, but our country's kind of built on our country's kind of built on a war kind of a proposition, and so the people who make money during war are not the same people who are profiting from the peacetime. And
you're just referring to the Congress.
Well, Congress, but you think about pretty much every general that retires goes to work for some think tank in Washington or for some,
and they're always on the news,
right? And then every senator or congressman that retires goes to work for some think tank, or they go to work for a defense contractor or something like that. And so or they go to Wall Street and they work for a brokerage. And so you kind of have this marriage between the defense and contracting into the defense industry and the people on Wall Street and the political elite in Washington D.C. and then of course now you have the billionaires that run the media like Facebook and Twitter and such, and they're Twitter I guess is up for grabs right now, but they're all kind of on the same page. I wouldn't say it's a conspiracy, but they all have the same interest, right? I don't.
It's coincidental that they all have the same business interests.
Well, I don't think they're having meetings to discuss the things.
See, that's where I think you're wrong. I think they are having meetings.
I don't think they're that organized, but I think that the fact is they're all pulling in the same direction, and I think that's bad for the ordinary person, for the common person. I think that all that's bad for us, because I think that where that puts us is that in times of war, the defense contractors make more money. Congress gets less resistance from the population. The bankers are loaning more money out, so they're making more money. All those. The news outlets make more money because more people are watching and more hungry for news. All of that stuff kind of works together, where if you have peacetime, they have less to do.
Right. I think the big worry about in this country is that if we were ever to actually have peace, you would find people that would say, let's not do that again. And that would kill because honestly, you think about, I know in my lifetime, I was looking at a timeline of how many wars America has been involved in, whether it's been here or somewhere else. I've never had a day in my life where we weren't at war with somebody.
Right.
That's just the wars we know about, not the things in Venezuela, like coups that go on in other countries. Right. Your kids and my kid will never know a time we weren't involved in some war in some capacity. Don't you think it's a weird thing to actually live through a time like that where you're not really paying attention? It's just a blurb on the news, like today Crimea got pissed on, and you just move on to the next thing, that the Johnny Depp trial. Right. You're never going to live in a time where you've ever had peace in your lifetime.
I think our kids have a possibility of being able to have that. I think that just because if you consider what so there's a couple of guys called Strauss and Howe that wrote a book called The Fourth Turning, and they document kind of how things happen through seasons, and according to them we're in a fourth turning right now. So this, and your fourth turning is kind of the culmination of things that have happened over the last three, and it always ends up in a crisis, and then out of that crisis comes something new. So I would say that our kids have the possibility of being lead generation in a new they call it a sacrum, but it's like a century, a new peacetime cycle.
I'm raising mine to be a sniper, just in case you were wrong. Hippie.
I'm sure that Mia would be an awesome sniper.
Not really, because she talks too much. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, she can.
Hey, what are you guys doing? Put your phone down, goddammit.
Yeah, but she hates people though, because she's got.
I've raised her correctly.
You've raised her to
when she was like a baby, and she'd say, "Dad, what's going on over there?" And I go, "All those mouth breathers over there? Yeah, those are your teachers." And so I wanted her to understand that people equal shit. When you were talking to your kids, like, do you ever have a conversation about what's going on? Like, I remember growing up, my dad was in the service at the time, and when Desert Storm, every time the phone rang, my mom, who is tend to be overreactionary, thought they kept calling him like, you're going, you know. And my dad used to teach what's called disaster preparedness, to teach soldiers like how to deal with chemical weapons and all that, like, you know, with the gas mask and all that stuff.
I mean, chemical weapons like the big gulp from. Yes.
There's more danger in that big gulp than there was going over to Desert Storm.
The beauty of this is if I have any left over, I can clean my windshield with it.
The way you described a big gulp as beauty, and it says XX Grande on it. Do you feel good about that purchase? How much was that?
It says large.
No.
Not grande.
Look on the side. Nope. That says double extra large, first of all. As attorneys, we should be reading things. Look. Nope. You're not. You keep turning it and put your big Fred Flintstone thumb on the XX. Nope. God damn. I'm not dealing with you. I hate when you have drinks on the show. We're banning drinks from the set. We already get this the fuck out of here. Okay. My question to you somewhere in there, is during Desert Storm, we were all like, it was the first real, it was going to be boots on the ground.
Right.
And it didn't turn out to be that way.
Right.
It was, we're just going to drone bomb. Like, I don't think that the American public realized we had these weapons.
Right.
So you had a bunch of soldiers that just had to sit on the sidelines and just kind of walk around or do basic routines because the war was over from the air.
Right.
You know, and I think that's the first time that I know people that I grew up with said, well, why are we sending people anyway? Right. You don't need troops there. But since that time, and I was probably 16 years old, at that point, I realized I'm never going to know a time when we have actual peace. I don't know if the Cold War was really, to me, it just seemed like everything was just chilled out. We're going to rebuild our weapon stocks and all that. Russia has been defeated economically, not through.
Well, right. But remember, during the Cold War, we decided to go ahead and have a hot war in Korea and then one in Vietnam.
Totally different. It's nice there. You can wear shorts. You can do whatever you want.
Well, I'm just saying, but it wasn't like it was a complete.
I know, but think about it this way.
But, you know, from the end of World War II until Korea, there was kind of peacetime there.
When's the last war that the U.S. was involved in that they won? French Indian?
Depends on how you define one.
Okay, where you don't cover your asshole as you're running for the helicopter and trying to get out of there like you did in Vietnam or Afghanistan. I guess, can we get that on a shirt? I want that to be a term. We're not doing so well whenever we have to get involved. And I don't know if it was you were telling me a story or it was a cop. They said that one of the reasons they want to get involved in a war like this, like a boots on the ground type of thing, is that the people who are running these wars or psyops have no experience because they worked under somebody else, and those people all retired or kind of got pushed out. So like Millie or Miley or whatever that broad's name is, that fella that took over, has no actual wartime experience, not even running simulations of it. The other guy they put in there, and they put him in there for a specific reason, he has no wartime experience. They're trying to do this to prepare them as though we got to figure out if we can even handle a war. So we have warships, but they've never been in war activity.
That's a brilliant philosophy. Really.
Well, I would do it.
Who came up with that?
You got to have a scrimmage.
We don't know if we can fight, so let's fight.
But this is the thinking: is find out if we can take on Russia,
right,
before we have to take on China.
But that would be like us going, Nate, I don't know if you can do this, but let's try it.
We do that every goddamn week. What are you talking about? I would say, Nate, can you film this? And he's in the other room crying and he's trying to figure it out. I'm just, but think about it. You have to know if you can complete this task, right? That's what, when you're taking like quizzes and stuff at school.
It seems to me irrational to risk what they would be risking.
Who's risking what is the question?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you're talking about, what you're saying is that the powers that be are considering going into a war with Russia in the Ukraine because our people don't have any experience and we want them to get some experience.
Right.
Right.
Because what do we have to do there? We have to. So let's say we go in there and you're not going to beat Russia. Okay. No one's ever won a war in Russia. Okay. Not because they're so tough, because of the way that land is. It's kind of like Afghanistan. No one's ever won a land war in Afghanistan because they don't understand the terrain and the temperature and all that. So you're not going to win that. You're just going to protect this border.
You don't think it's because the people are...
I think it's because of Ivan Drago.
Drago?
He killed Apollo Creed. How about that, America? Take that. I'm still very pro-Russia.
Well, but then Stallone kicked his butt.
That was different. The guy already had a fight, and like a couple months later, he has to fight Rocky.
Totally kicked his butt.
That's how you saw it. I saw it as cheating.
And then he got all the Russians cheering for him and not for Drago.
And that's why he lost. Because he lost the support of his country. America's the best at propaganda. The guy's wearing American flag trunks. First of all, hello. What's cooler than that?
In Russia?
Yeah. Russians love Starbucks, Levi's jeans. They love all our cool shit. Xbox.
I don't think Russians love the American flag shorts.
Have you? Oh, so you've been to Russia? Listen, you're getting me off the path because I'm trying to make my point.
Oh, so you've been to
it's not the purpose to win a war. It's a purpose to occupy another place. Okay. That's the whole thing about Ukraine is we're trying to get Ukraine into NATO so we can have bases built, American-run bases, NATO or shit, in Ukraine to literally have, what's the movie, A Few Good Men? Where they have that firing line? Yeah. So you can't fire over this. We won't fire it over it. Same thing. We are not trying to win any wars. We are trying to occupy more space so that if your economy falls apart, so what's happening right now with Ukraine is this is an economic hitman type of project. I'm going to give you $55 billion, but now you got to pay me. So if you can't, I'm just going to take your resources in exchange. That's what's happening. But there's nothing to take if they're firing rockets on Ukraine over and over again. You think we give $55 billion to a country that their national economy is less than $8 billion? What are we giving it to them for? And we're giving them weapons.
$55 billion is a lot of money.
You know what you could buy with $55 billion?
Ukraine.
12 of those big gulps. Well, essentially, we own it, right? So that's what we did in Venezuela. All these other countries that we come in and say, we're going to give you money. And who's the other one? Ethiopia and all that. We're going to just keep giving you money. But we're going to take your resources without paying for it. And now, on top of that, you owe me 7 to 10% on the money that I gave you, which you can never pay back. We own you now. We're taking the deed on your house.
I mean, theoretically, yeah, I guess that's probably true. The fact remains though that there's a huge military operation going on in Ukraine. It's hard to tell exactly what's happening, but it looks to me, just from the global thing, that Russia's kind of winning. It looks to me like Ukraine will completely fall unless NATO intervenes. And if NATO, I don't think NATO can intervene.
They can't.
I was just looking at a chart. You know who the number one purchaser of petroleum is from Russia?
Puff Daddy?
No, it's China. But do you know who number 2 is?
Biggie Smalls?
Germany. So if NATO attacks Russia, Germany, Italy, Sweden, they get most of their natural gas from Russia. They're screwed.
Do you know how we're getting gas? From Turkey.
It's from eating things from Subway.
Yes. I've had it all day, and I'm glad you're downwind. We are getting it from India and Turkey. Do you know how they're getting it? They're buying it from Russia, and it's called a one-step. I'm not buying it directly from Russia. I'm buying it from these two people without questioning, where did you get it? So it's a way for us to say we're not doing business.
That's illegal, though, isn't it?
Let's not work about legalities. That's the problem, is that gas, if you're not going to drill, I don't care how you feel about the greenhouse gas. Listen, we're all going to die soon, and when the sun expands and blows this thing up like it never existed, let's get the oil going right now.
The problem, and again, I think I mentioned this, but I read an article a few weeks back. I can't remember the guy's name. Isn't that terrible? Anyway,
Hunter S. Thompson.
He had come up with somewhere north of 6,000 products that are made from petroleum and petroleum distillates. And it was like cell phones, tires in your car.
Cups,
just everything,
right? Straws.
And so his conclusion, his point was, if we don't have petroleum, we have no need for electricity because we don't have anything for the electricity to run. So, I'm
that's
not
a way
sure.
to fix the greenhouse effect. Have nothing run.
Have nothing that runs, right? So I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Sooner or later, petroleum sooner or later will run out. Obviously, we need to be working on other forms of energy, but to think that solar or wind power is going to be able to completely get rid of petroleum or fossil fuels is, I think, naive.
That's a good place to end it, on a really low note. Thank you for doing it.
I'm good at low.
I see that. Well, thank you for the depressing note, and we will see you next week.